Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. Enemy variety in RPGs is really important to get right. Having a good combat system is important for sure, but if you don't have a decent mix of enemies to fight, it can quickly become repetitive. Fortunately, Greedfall doesn't seem like it will suffer from this problem, because we could see a lot of different creatures in the trailers and short clips that Spiders released. In this video we're gonna take a closer look at those enemies and break down everything we know so far. And as always, if you're new here, consider subscribing for more RPG content and click on the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Greedfall has a really unique 17th century inspired setting with fantasy elements on top of that. I believe this approach gives Spiders a huge creative freedom when it comes to monster design. They also mentioned creature history and how everything exists with a reason. Fantasy creatures should always have a story, and they made sure to include their origins. This leads me to believe that we'll have a bestiary in the game, which is always great news since it will definitely provide more info about the lore. The first creature I want to mention is the one you couldn't miss if you watched anything related to Greedfall basically. Since you get to fight this monster at the end of the prologue, they took the liberty to show almost the whole fight, but this doesn't mean that it won't change when we get to play the game. Anyway, the reason I want to talk a little bit about this monster is because I believe there is a high possibility that we'll see it again later in the game. One thing worth mentioning is that combat in some newer clips looks a lot smoother than in this one, but that's not the point of this video. I'm willing to bet that we'll get to fight this monster again, or at least a different version of the same creature. And some people say that it looks like a lash on steroids from The Witcher 3, which is a fair statement. It has everything that you would expect from a boss in an RPG. Range attack that you need to dodge, spinning attack if you're behind him, etc. One similar creature that we could see in one of the trailers is, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this, Nadaig Fressman? Yeah, that. Even though we could only see a tiny part of this fight, this creature looks fairly similar. It could be because of the overall theme of these monsters. They are different for sure, but you can also see a lot of similarities between them. But nothing seems out of the place, which is really important. The next monster is also one of the first that we could see in some early gameplay trailers. I could be wrong, but I'm almost 100% sure that this is the same model, just improved. The spear looks different and it seems smaller, so that could also mean that this older version is a unique type of the same monster. If this is actually true, it could turn out to be similar to how Witcher 3 did some unique monsters. If you remember in Witcher 3, those unique contract monsters had their own backstory and different looks, but they still belonged to some regular monster type. Yeah, this wouldn't be a Greedfall video if I didn't speculate a bit. The last big monster on the list has some kind of tentacles on his face, and he can pretty much bitch slap you if you're not careful. Cool and weird at the same time, but it looks like an interesting fight. And to be honest, it's probably my favorite monster that I've seen so far. In one recent tweet, Spiders have published concept arts for a couple of monsters, and I believe that this is the same tentacle monster that we could see in the trailers. It's maybe slightly different, and I'm not sure what these two versions mean. Maybe it gets enraged in the fight or something, or there are actually two different versions of this monster. And those would be all the bigger creatures that we could see. I'm pretty sure there are many more that we'll find while exploring the island. I also noticed a couple of armor pieces that have the exact same look like these monsters. For example, this helmet looks identical to the second big monster we mentioned, so I'm guessing we'll need those materials he drops to be able to craft it. Or maybe he'll just drop it straight away. Besides big monsters, there are plenty of small creatures like this hunchback wolf that we could see quite a few times. In one of the fights there was a slightly different version of the same creature, or at least I think it's the same creature. It's definitely bigger and in different colors, so I guess it's an alpha or something. If this is actually the case, that probably means that we'll see something similar for other smaller species as well. We could see some fights versus harpies and smaller flying creatures that resemble bats. And of course, we have fights versus other human NPCs. There is not much here to say because you probably already have an idea of how those work. Their style of fighting will mostly depend on the weapon type, but I would like to see some fights versus the natives that use magic, because that would be pretty interesting. I'm also guessing that natives will know quite a bit about the lore of these monsters, so that's something I want to see as well. So far, it does seem like we'll have a good variety of enemies in the game, but I'm pretty sure that Spiders know they would ruin the feel of the game if they show too much. September 10th is closer and closer, so I think we'll get to see more brand new stuff about the game soon. Until then, make sure you subscribe for more RPG content and click on the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Greedfall is the game that I plan to cover in depth with tips and guides, so if you're interested in this game, you're on the right channel. I also do some news, reviews and everything related to role-playing games. Special thanks to my patrons and exclusive YouTube members, and if you as well want to become one, all the links are in the description. See ya in the next one.